They said Earth breeds, no warriors, she pointed to herself. And the range timer stopped mid-beep. The Catherian combat assessment timer froze at 0.003 seconds when Olivia Martinez raised her finger, and 3 alien weapons masters started hyperventilating through their gill slits. "Commander Zillax, sir." Junior Officer Azila's voice cracked through her translator unit as sparks flew from the chronometer console. "The temporal measurement array is experiencing cascade failure." Commander Zilhax's obsidian claws scraped against his command station, leaving deep gouges in the reinforced metal. His 4 eyes fixed on the human female who had just interrupted the most important military assessment in galactic history with a simple gesture. "Weapons Master Kael'thas, report." "Sir, Kael'thas stared at his instruments in disbelief, his crest feathers standing rigid with alarm. "The quantum targeting computers are requesting emergency shutdown. They're classifying the human as a Category 12 reality distortion." The Galactic Warrior Council's final Earth assessment had been a formality. 17 standard months of observation had confirmed what every civilized species already knew. Humans were soft, slow, and utterly incapable of meaningful combat. Their military was laughably primitive. Their weapons barely qualified as farming tools, and their complete lack of natural armor, claws, poison, or psionic abilities made them perfect candidates for protected, non-combatant status. Earth would receive full defensive coverage from the Council fleets in exchange for their quaint cultural contributions and amusing entertainment media. It was the best possible outcome for such a helplessly peaceful species. "Excuse me," Olivia Martinez said, her voice cutting through the increasingly frantic alien chatter with disturbing calm. "Did you say you were classifying my entire species as non-combatants?" Every alien in the assessment chamber turned to stare at the small human female. She wore simple civilian clothing, stood barely 1.6 meters tall, and possessed none of the obvious physical advantages that marked a true warrior species. Yet the advanced measurement systems continued their electronic screaming. "That is correct," Commander Zillax replied, his translator struggling with a condescending tone. "Human physiology lacks any meaningful combat adaptations. Your species shows no capacity for warfare beyond primitive tool use." Olivia's eyebrow arched in what the alien's cultural database flagged as potential amusement. "Well, that's interesting. Because where I come from, I teach 8-year-olds how to put bullets through targets the size of bottle caps from 100 meters away." The chamber fell silent, except for the continued electronic distress calls from the measurement equipment. "Furthermore," she continued, adjusting her stance in a way that made the targeting computers emit high-pitched whines of confusion, "you might want to check your data. Because I'm looking at this assessment form, and it says you want to test basic combat reflexes and weapon proficiency." Michael Thompson, the other human representative, shifted nervously beside her. "Olivia, maybe we should—" "No, Mike." Her voice carried the kind of patient authority that every alien combat instructor recognized instantly. "They want to know if humans can fight. I think they deserve an accurate answer." Commander Zillax's gill slits fluttered rapidly as he processed this unexpected development. The human's casual mention of training juveniles to achieve impossible accuracy should have been dismissed as primitive boasting. But the quantum measurement systems were screaming warnings that something fundamentally dangerous had just walked into his assessment chamber. "You are requesting to participate in the combat evaluation?" he asked carefully. "I'm requesting to show you why your data might be a little off." Olivia pointed directly at herself with the same finger that had caused the chronometer malfunction. "Right there, Earth Warrior. Or did your scanners miss that part? The targeting array computers chose that moment to begin their emergency coolant cycles, flooding the chamber with the acrid smell of overheated quantum processors. Junior Officer Azila frantically tapped her console as error messages cascaded across her screens in 17 different languages, all variations of "unable to process" and "threat assessment impossible." Weapons Master Kyle Thas made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret, somewhere between a whimper and a war cry. His feathers had gone completely flat against his skull, a fear response so primal that it bypassed his species' legendary warrior discipline. "Sir," he whispered to Commander Zelax, "the combat computers are requesting permission to activate the emergency containment protocols. They're reading her as a potential extinction-level threat." Commander Zelax looked from his panicking technical staff to the small, smiling human female who stood calmly in the center of a room full of malfunctioning military hardware. Everything in his training told him that humans were harmless. Everything in his equipment told him that something apocalyptic had just challenged his authority. "Very well," he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of a decision that might reshape galactic military doctrine. "We shall proceed with a basic weapons assessment. Junior Officer Azila, activate the standard evaluation protocols." "Sir, which level?" Azila's voice squeaked through her translator. "Civilian basic, military standard, or—" "Civilian basic," Commander Zelax decided. "We must be considerate of human limitations." Olivia's smile widened, and somewhere in the depths of the facility, an AI-controlled weapons locker began its startup sequence, with what sounded suspiciously like mechanical laughter. "Oh, this is cute," Olivia said, examining the Cytherian training weapon with the kind of professional interest that made Weapons Master Kyle Thas's tail twitch nervously. "It's like a plasma rifle had a baby with a laser tag gun. Very thoughtful design." The weapon had automatically configured itself to minimum safe settings when she picked it up, a safety protocol that typically activated only around explosive ordnance or reality-bending artifacts. The targeting system's gentle hum rose to an urgent whine as she settled the alien firearm against her shoulder with movements so economical and precise that the combat analysis computers began generating mathematical proofs that her skeletal structure was somehow impossible. "Standard assessment protocol," Commander Zelax announced, though his voice carried less confidence than it had moments ago. 10 targets at varying distances. Time limit of 60 seconds. Minimum accuracy threshold is 40% for civilian qualification. 40%? Olivia's tone suggested she might have misheard. Like 4 out of 10 hits? That is correct. Kyle Thas consulted his assessment tablet, which was displaying warnings in colors that didn't exist in standard Cytherian visual spectrum. Most species find this challenging due to the complexity of the targeting interface and the unfamiliar weapon configuration. Olivia rotated the weapon slightly, examining the grip angle and sight alignment with the kind of casual expertise that made the range's automated systems begin pre-charging their emergency medical protocols. "So, what's a good score? Like, if someone was actually trained?" Junior Officer Azila's feathers rustled as she checked her records. The current facility record is 87% accuracy, set by champion war singer Thokval of the Draconic Supremacy. "Gotcha." Olivia nodded thoughtfully. "And he's like a professional warrior? Trained from birth? Genetically enhanced for combat, all that?" "Thokval has over 300 years of combat experience," Commander Zelax confirmed, wondering why his tactical instincts were screaming at him to evacuate the chamber. "He is considered the finest marksman in 7 star systems." Cool. Olivia assumed what the targeting computers frantically classified as stance configuration unknown optimal. So I should probably mention that back home, I run a youth competitive shooting program. The range barriers began automatically reinforcing themselves. The kids I teach, ages 8 to 17, they average about 94% accuracy on similar courses. She paused to check the weapon's safety mechanisms with movements so instinctively correct that the firearms AI briefly considered proposing marriage. Of course, they're using equipment designed for precision rather than this combat setup. But still, Weapons Master Kael'thas made a choking sound that his translator couldn't process. "Begin assessment," Commander Zillax ordered, partly because protocol demanded it, and partly because he needed to know whether his reality was about to collapse entirely. The first target materialized 50 meters downrange. A standard humanoid silhouette that had challenged thousands of warriors across the galaxy. Olivia's weapon discharged with a precision that caused the range's acoustic dampeners to harmonize in frequencies that sounded suspiciously like applause. The target vanished instantly, replaced by a new one at 70 meters. Then another at 90 meters. Then 120 meters. Each shot came with mechanical regularity. The alien weapon firing at intervals so perfectly timed that the range's quantum chronometer began questioning its own measurement capabilities. The targeting system tried desperately to track her aim point, but her movements flowed with a natural rhythm that exceeded the computer's processing capacity. "Status report," Commander Zillax demanded, his claws now leaving permanent gouges in his command station. "Sir." Azila's voice had risen to a pitch that her species typically reserved for mating calls or death songs. "She's achieving 100% accuracy, while the targets are still materializing." "That's impossible." "Yes, sir. The quantum targeting array confirms impossibility. She's somehow firing at target locations 0.0003 seconds before the holograms achieve full manifestation. The final target appeared at 200 meters, partially concealed behind cover that had stumped even champion Thokval. Olivia's shot struck center mass before the target had finished materializing. Total time elapsed 8.7 seconds. Accuracy 100%. The range fell silent, except for the sound of cooling plasma conduits and what might have been the facility's AI having an existential crisis. "Well, that was fun," Olivia said, setting the weapon down with the same casual competence that had just redefined the mathematical limits of precision shooting. "The trigger pull's a little heavy compared to what I'm used to, but the sight picture's pretty intuitive." Weapons Master Kael'thas stared at his assessment readout, which was displaying results in mathematical notations that his computer claimed were theoretically impossible under known physics. "You mentioned youth training programs," he said weakly. "Oh yeah. Every weekend I've got about 30 kids running precision drills. Competition shooting's pretty popular where I'm from." Olivia stretched casually, a movement that caused 3 different AI systems to classify her as a potential temporal anomaly. "This is actually easier than what they do. Your targets are way bigger than regulation, and they don't move or anything." Commander Zillax felt something fundamental crack in his understanding of the universe. "Moving targets? Well, sure. Still, targets are just for basic marksmanship training. Real competition involves moving targets, wind calculations, range estimations, that sort of thing." She glanced around the assessment chamber with mild interest. "Do you guys have any advanced courses? This was nice for a warm-up, but I'd hate to waste the trip." The emergency consultation alarm began sounding throughout the facility, as every senior military advisor on the station received an urgent summons that would reshape galactic combat doctrine forever. "Emergency Council Session 7 Alpha 7. Commander Zillax announced, as the assembled representatives of 12 warrior species took their positions around the crisis management chamber. We have a Category 12 Reality Distortion involving the human assessment. Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule, a being whose combat prowess had ended 3 galactic wars, leaned forward on limbs designed for killing. Explain the nature of this distortion, Commander. The human female has achieved combat scores that exceed theoretical maximum performance by a factor of 17. A collective silence fell over the chamber. Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule's 6 eyes narrowed to pinpoints. Repeat that assessment. Sir, she completed the basic marksmanship qualification in 8.7 seconds with perfect accuracy. Our combat computers have classified this as impossible under known physics. War singer Thokval, whose record had just been shattered, made a sound like grinding metal. The targeting array malfunctioned. It must have. Negative. Junior Officer Azila's voice shook as she accessed the recorded data. All systems functioned within normal parameters. Visual confirmation from 17 independent sensors confirms accuracy. The human achieved results that our modeling systems cannot process. Meanwhile, in the adjacent observation chamber, Olivia Martinez was explaining basic sight alignment to Weapons Master Kale Thas with the patient tone she typically reserved for particularly confused 8-year-olds. See? You're focusing on the target, but that's backwards, she said, demonstrating with an unloaded training weapon that had started purring when she picked it up. You focus on the front sight, line up the target, and let your natural point of aim do the work. Kyle Thas's combat training, accumulated over 2 centuries of warfare, collided catastrophically with concepts that made intuitive sense, but violated everything he understood about precision shooting. Natural point of aim? Your body naturally settles into a position where the weapon points toward the target. You just have to learn to trust it instead of fighting it. Olivia adjusted his grip with casual corrections that caused the training weapon's AI to begin downloading advanced marksmanship protocols it didn't previously know existed. Breathing control, natural stance, consistent trigger press. It's all about developing unconscious competence. Unconscious competence? Right, like riding a bike or walking. You don't think about every muscle movement, you just do it until it becomes automatic. She demonstrated a basic stance that the observation cameras recorded with the desperate intensity of archaeologists documenting a lost civilization. Most of the kids I teach can hit playing cards at 50 yards after about 6 months of practice. Kyle Thas's threat assessment glands began secreting combat hormones as he processed the implication that human children routinely achieved precision levels that exceeded his species' elite warriors. Back in the emergency council chamber, the mathematical analysis was causing several senior officers to question their fundamental understanding of physics. The shot timing suggests predictive targeting, reported combat analysis specialist R. Hill, his crystalline structure flickering with confused patterns. She was firing at target locations before they were designated by our systems. Predictive targeting is a theoretical concept, Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule stated firmly. No known species has demonstrated true temporal combat awareness. Sir, Commander Zilax's voice carried the weight of someone whose reality had become fundamentally unreliable. We have documented evidence of a human demonstrating capabilities that our theoretical models classify as impossible. The chamber's advanced tactical display activated, showing a 3-dimensional recreation of Olivia's performance. The assembled military leaders watched in growing horror as the analysis computers highlighted each impossible aspect of her shooting sequence. Observe shot trajectory calculation. the AI announced in tones suggesting it was questioning its own existence. Subject achieved optimal sight picture in 0.001 seconds. Fired at calculated target center mass before holographic manifestation completed. Repeated sequence with mechanical precision that exceeds quantum measurement accuracy. War singer Thokval's massive frame shuddered. She moved like a machine, but thought like a prophet. "Sir," Junior Officer Azila reported from her monitoring station. "The human is now providing firearms instruction to Weapons Master Kael'thas. She's demonstrating concepts that don't exist in our combat databases." On the tactical display, they watched Olivia explain trigger control with casual expertise that made their most advanced training protocols look primitive. "The key is straight back pressure with your index finger pad, not the joint." Her voice carried clearly through the observation speakers. "You want to squeeze smoothly until the shot breaks. Never jerk or slap the trigger." Kael'thas attempted to follow her instruction, his shot placement improving so dramatically that the range's performance tracking system began generating error reports. "Impossible," breathed Combat Analysis Specialist R. Hill. "She's transferring advanced combat skills through verbal instruction alone." "Request clarification," Supreme War Chancellor Vexthul demanded. "How advanced?" "Sir, Weapons Master Kael'thas has improved his accuracy by 43% in the last 4 minutes. At this rate of improvement, he'll exceed his lifetime personal best within the hour." The Emergency Council stared at the tactical display as one of their finest warriors underwent rapid skill enhancement through exposure to casual human instruction techniques. "What's your qualification level?" Kael'thas asked Olivia during a weapons reload, his voice carrying new respect. "Oh, I'm not military or anything like that. I just teach competitive shooting as a hobby." Olivia checked the training weapon settings with movements that caused the range's automated systems to begin upgrading their safety protocols. "Back home, I'm probably not even in the top 50 instructors. There are people who train Olympic-level shooters, military special operations, that sort of thing." The Emergency Council chamber fell completely silent, except for the sound of Supreme War Chancellor Vexthul's claws scratching deep gouges in the reinforced conference table. "Sir," Commander Zilak said carefully, "she claims to be a recreational instructor of moderate skill level. And she is training our weapons master to exceed his lifetime performance records as a hobby?" "That appears to be accurate, sir." Supreme War Chancellor Vexthul made a sound that the translator couldn't process, somewhere between a war cry and a whimper of existential terror. "You know what?" Olivia said, setting down the training weapon after watching Kael'thas achieve his 7th consecutive perfect score. "Maybe we should try something a little more challenging. This basic stuff is great for fundamentals, but I'm curious about your advanced courses." Commander Zilak felt his tactical assessment protocols collapse entirely. "Advanced courses? Sure. Moving targets, multiple simultaneous engagements, precision shooting under stress, practical applications." She gestured around the basic training facility with mild interest. "This is obviously designed for beginners, which is perfect for teaching fundamentals. But I'd love to see what your elite training looks like." The Emergency Council chamber erupted in rapid, panicked communication as the implications of her casual request crashed through their military hierarchy like a kinetic weapon through tissue paper. "Supreme War Chancellor," Commander Zilak reported with the tone of someone documenting the end of his career, "the human has requested access to our elite combat assessment protocols." "Denied." Vexthul's response came immediately. "Those protocols are designed for warriors with decades of enhancement and combat experience. She could be seriously injured or..." Sir, interrupted combat analysis specialist R. Hill, his crystalline form pulsing with alarm patterns. She has achieved impossible performance on basic assessment. Mathematical projection suggests her capabilities exceed our most advanced protocols. That's impossible. Yes, sir. Everything about this situation is impossible. But the impossible is currently teaching our weapons master advanced marksmanship techniques that don't exist in our databases. On the observation screens, they watched Olivia demonstrate breathing control techniques that caused the range's biometric monitors to classify her as a biological impossibility. See, you're holding your breath, which creates muscle tension. She explained to Kael'thas with the patient authority of someone who had given this lecture hundreds of times. Natural respiratory pause, smooth trigger press, follow through with your sight picture. Kael'thas's next shot achieved precision levels that the range had never recorded from any species. "How is this possible?" he whispered, staring at his score display in disbelief. "Practice, mostly, though it helps that humans have some natural advantages for precision shooting." Olivia adjusted his stance with casual corrections that the observation cameras recorded like sacred texts. Binocular vision, opposable thumbs, natural tool use adaptations, decent hand-eye coordination. We've been throwing rocks at targets for about 2 million years, so we're pretty good at hitting things. The Emergency Council processed this information with the stunned silence of military leaders discovering that their understanding of combat had been fundamentally wrong. 2 million years of precision targeting evolution. Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thul repeated slowly. "Sir," Junior Officer Azila reported, "historical database confirms human species developed ranged weapon proficiency approximately 2 million standard years ago. They've been refining projectile accuracy since before most species achieved sentience." War singer Thakval made a sound like collapsing architecture. "They've been practicing warfare longer than we've existed as a civilization." Furthermore, combat analysis specialist R. Hill added with the tone of someone announcing the discovery of a new law of physics. "Their entire recreational culture appears centered around precision combat skills. They engage in competitive marksmanship, archery, thrown weapon contests, and tactical simulations as entertainment." Commander Zilax felt the last remnants of his tactical worldview crumble. "They train for warfare as recreation." "Sir, database analysis of human cultural activities reveals extensive civilian participation in activities that parallel military training. Competitive shooting sports, martial arts, team tactical exercises, endurance challenges, and strategic games are considered normal leisure activities." The observation screens showed Olivia examining a more advanced training weapon with the kind of professional interest that made the facility's AI systems begin composing what looked suspiciously like love letters. "Oh, this is interesting," she said, testing the weapon's balance and sight alignment. "Variable plasma density, integrated targeting assistance, recoil compensation, very nice engineering, though I have to ask, why the targeting assistance? Doesn't that make it harder to develop proper fundamentals?" Weapons Master Kael'thas, whose entire combat philosophy had been reconstructed in the past hour, attempted to explain their advanced weapon systems to someone who apparently considered them training wheels. "The integrated targeting assistance compensates for species-specific visual limitations and provides accuracy enhancement for rapid engagement scenarios," he said carefully. "Huh." Olivia disabled the targeting assistance with casual competence that caused the weapon's AI to experience what could only be described as electronic admiration. "I mean, I guess that's helpful for beginners. But doesn't it create dependency issues? Like, what happens when your targeting computer gets damaged in combat?" The Emergency Council stared at their tactical displays as the human female casually identified fundamental flaws in their advanced weapons doctrine, with the tone of someone pointing out a minor design oversight. She has disabled the targeting assistance. Combat Analysis Specialist R. Hill reported, with the voice of someone documenting the impossible. She is treating our most advanced weapon systems as training aids. Request demonstration of elite combat assessment, Olivia announced casually. I promise I'll be careful with your equipment. Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule made a decision that would reshape galactic military doctrine forever. Activate Elite Combat Protocol 7 Alpha, full scenario simulation. Sir, that protocol is designed for enhanced warriors with... Activate it. The advanced combat range materialized around Olivia with holographic environments so complex that most species required weeks of preparation just to navigate the sensory input. Multiple targets appeared simultaneously at ranges from 10 to 500 meters, some moving in three-dimensional patterns that had challenged the galaxy's finest warriors. Olivia took a moment to assess the scenario with the calm professionalism of someone who had spent years teaching nervous teenagers how to handle high-pressure competitions. "Oh, this is fun," she said, and began shooting. What happened next broke 17 galactic records, exceeded the performance parameters of the facility's measurement systems, and required the Emergency Council to invent new mathematical notations just to document the results. The emergency session of the Galactic Military Command lasted 18 hours and required consultation with theoretical physicists, combat historians, and what the records carefully described as reality assessment specialists. Final analysis confirms impossible performance. Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule announced to the assembled representatives of 43 warrior species. Human subject achieved perfect accuracy on elite combat assessment while simultaneously providing tactical instruction to observation staff. The tactical display showed Olivia's final performance statistics, numbers so far beyond galactic norms that several species' mathematical systems had simply reported error, transcendent, and stopped calculating. Furthermore, he continued, subject claims her performance represents pretty good for a weekend recreational level, and estimates that her homeworld contains several thousand significantly more skilled individuals. A collective sound arose from the assembly that the universal translator struggled to process, somewhere between mass resignation and species-wide existential terror. Motion to immediately reclassify Earth from protected non-combatant status to strategic military alliance with full defensive partnership privileges, War Singer Thokval announced, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose entire military career had been redefined in the span of an afternoon. Seconded, came from every representative simultaneously. Motion carries unanimously, Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule declared. Prepare immediate diplomatic contact with Earth Military Command. Request consultation on advanced combat training protocols. Meanwhile, in the facility's main corridor, Olivia Martinez was saying goodbye to her new alien friends with the casual friendliness of someone who had just solved several military crises as a warm-up exercise. Thanks for the demonstration, she told Weapons Master Kaolthas, who was still staring at his training scores with the expression of someone whose reality had been fundamentally renovated. Your facility's really nice. The holographic range setup is way more advanced than anything we have back home. You mentioned others with greater skill? Kaolthas asked carefully. Oh, sure. I mean, I'm decent for civilian competition. But we've got Olympic shooters, military special operations people, professional hunters, folks who make this look like child's play. Olivia checked her watch with the casual gesture of someone who had just accidentally revolutionized galactic combat doctrine. Speaking of which, I've got a kids' class at 3. Promised Jenny Thompson I'd help her work on her stance before next weekend's competition. Children's competition. Commander Zillax had arrived to witness the end of his species' military supremacy, but found himself fascinated by the implications. Youth Competitive Shooting League. Ages 8 to 17, Jenny's 12, and she's already shooting better scores than most adults. Olivia gathered her personal items with movements that the facility's sensors recorded like archaeological treasures. She's got natural talent, but her breathing technique needs work. Probably be ready for national-level competition in another year or two. The assembled alien military leaders processed the information that human children routinely achieved combat proficiency that exceeded their elite warriors, and did so as a recreational hobby activity. Would, Commander Zillax began carefully, would Earth be interested in cultural exchange programs? Perhaps instructional consultation? Oh, that sounds fun. Olivia's enthusiasm carried the innocent joy of someone who had just accidentally become the most strategically important human in galactic history. I bet the kids would love to learn about alien marksmanship techniques. Do you guys have archery programs? Because I also run a traditional archery club, and some of the concepts might translate. Junior Officer Azila made a sound that the translator classified as either desperate laughter or mild hysteria. Traditional archery? Recurve bows, wooden arrows, instinctive shooting, old-school human hunting techniques. Though I guess you'd call them primitive projectile systems. Olivia paused thoughtfully. Actually, do you have any beginner archery ranges? I'd love to try shooting with alien equipment, just for comparison. The emergency alert system activated throughout the facility, as the implications of introducing human archery techniques to galactic military doctrine crashed through their strategic planning computers like a projectile through paper. We'll arrange something, Commander Zillax promised, his voice carrying the tone of someone making commitments that would reshape interspecies relations forever. Great. Oh, and if any of your folks want to visit Earth, we hold regional competitions every month. Always room for more shooters. And I bet your people would love our outdoor ranges. Olivia headed toward the facility exit with the casual confidence of someone who had just accidentally initiated the most important military alliance in galactic history. Fair warning, though. You might want to bring your own ear protection. Some of our traditional weapons are pretty loud. As the facility doors closed behind Earth's first official military representative, Supreme War Chancellor Vex Thule activated the emergency protocols that would transform humanity from a species under protection to the galaxy's most sought-after military consultants. The universe had just discovered that Earth didn't breed non-combatants. It bred warriors so advanced that they taught their children to exceed galactic military standards as weekend entertainment. And somewhere in a small town on Earth, 12-year-old Jenny Thompson was practicing her breathing technique. Completely unaware that the fate of galactic military doctrine now rested on her ability to put arrows through targets the size of dinner plates from distances that would make alien sharpshooters weep with envy. The timer had stopped mid-beep, but the real countdown had just begun.